Okay, today is the 10th of September, and this is the 52nd time we're speaking on the Majjhima Nikāya Suttas. Now we come to Sutta 126, Bhumija Sutta. Bhumija. This is an important sutta concerning Kamma Vipaka. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Rajagaha, in the bamboo grove, the squirrel sanctuary. Then when it was morning, the venerable Bhumija dressed, and taking his bowl and outer robe, went to the house of Prince Jayasena, and sat down on a seat made ready. Then Prince Jayasena went to the venerable Bhumija, and exchanged greetings with him. When this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he sat down at one side, and said to the venerable Bhumija, Master Bhumija, there are some recluses and Brahmins who make such assertions and hold such views as this. If one makes an aspiration and one leads the holy life, one is unable to procure any fruit. If one makes no aspiration and one leads the holy life, one is still unable to procure any fruit. If one both makes an aspiration and makes no aspiration, and one leads the holy life, one is still unable to procure any fruit. If one neither makes an aspiration nor makes no aspiration, and one leads the holy life, one is still unable to procure any fruit. What does the Venerable Bhumija's teacher say here? What does he declare? Stop here for a moment. So here apparently this Venerable Bhumija, he goes regularly to the house of Prince Jayasena for his meal. There are some monks who only go, stand outside the house, receive the food and walk away. During the Buddha's time, there were some who entered the house and ate the meal there. So this prince is asking, he heard that there are some ascetics say that you lead the holy life, you cannot obtain any fruit, any result, whether you make an aspiration or not. Evidently, this must be from external ascetics who are unable to obtain any fruit in their practice. And Venerable Bhumija said, I have not heard and learned that from the Blessed One's own lips, Prince. But it is possible that the Blessed One might say this. If one makes an aspiration and one leads the holy life unwisely, one is unable to procure any fruit. If one makes no aspiration and one leads the holy life unwisely, one is still unable to procure any fruit. If one both makes an aspiration and makes no aspiration, and one leads the holy life unwisely, one is still unable to procure any fruit. If one neither makes an aspiration nor makes no aspiration, and one leads the holy life unwisely, one is still unable to procure any fruit. However, if one makes an aspiration and leads the holy life wisely, one is able to procure fruit. If one makes no aspiration and one leads the holy life wisely, one is still able to procure fruit. If one both makes an aspiration and makes no aspiration, and one leads the holy life wisely, one is still able to procure fruit. If one neither makes an aspiration nor makes no aspiration, and one leads the holy life wisely, one is still able to procure fruit. I have not heard and learned this from the Blessed One's own lips, Prince, but it is possible that the Blessed One would answer as I have stated. And the Prince said, if Master Bhumija's teacher speaks thus, if he declares thus, then it certainly seems that the Venerable Bhumija's teacher stands ahead of all the ordinary recluses and Brahmins. Then Prince Jayasena served the Venerable Bhumija from his own dish of milk rice. Stop here for a moment. So here, what this Venerable Bhumija is telling this prince is that he did not hear what the Buddha said about this, about making an aspiration and not making an aspiration. But he says, most likely, the Buddha will say, it doesn't matter whether you make an aspiration or you don't make an aspiration. If you lead the holy life unwisely, in other words, in the wrong way, then it is not possible to get any fruit out of it. But if you lead the holy life wisely in the right way, doesn't matter whether you make an aspiration or not, you still will be able to get some fruit out of it. You get some results. There is a sutta in the Anguttara Nikāya 5.43 where the Buddha said, there are several things in the world that everybody wants. For example, to be born beautiful, to be healthy, to be happy, to have long life, and after passing away to have a good rebirth. So the Buddha said that these things are hard to get. And the Buddha said, you cannot get these things by making a vow or by praying for them or thinking about it frequently. The Buddha said that you must walk the path to get you what you want. In other words, you have to do the right karma. For example, what the Buddha meant is, if you want long life, you don't kill. If you don't kill, you will naturally get long life. You don't have to make an aspiration for it. You don't have to pray for it. You don't have to make vows for it. It will come naturally. This is karma. This is the result of. This is the law of karma vipaka. Action and its result. Action and its fruit. Intentional action and its fruit. So if we understand how things go according to this karma vipaka, then we will do the correct action. If you don't do the right action, you won't get what you want. Then when the Venerable Bhumija had returned from his alms round after his meal, he went to the Blessed One. After paying homage to him, he sat down at one side and told the Blessed One what had occurred, adding, Venerable Sir, I hope that when I was asked such a question and answered thus, I said what has been said by the Blessed One, and did not misrepresent him with what is contrary to fact. I hope I explained in accordance with the Dharma in such a way that nothing which provides a ground for censure can be legitimately deduced from my assertion. And the Buddha said, surely, Bhumija, when you were asked such a question and answered thus, you said what has been said by me, and did not misrepresent me with what is contrary to fact. You explain in accordance with the Dhamma in such a way that nothing which provides a ground for censure can be legitimately deduced from your assertion. Whatever recluses and Brahmins have wrong view, wrong thoughts, wrong speech, wrong action, wrong livelihood, wrong effort, wrong recollection, and wrong concentration, if they make an aspiration and they lead the holy life, they are unable to procure any fruit. If they make no aspiration and they lead the holy life, they are still unable to procure any fruit. If they both make an aspiration and make no aspiration, and they lead the holy life, they are still unable to procure any fruit. If they neither make an aspiration nor make no aspiration, and they lead the holy life, they are still unable to procure any fruit. Why is that? Because that wrong path is not a proper method for procuring fruit. Suppose a man needing oil, seeking oil, wandering in search of oil, were to heap up gravel in a tub, sprinkle it all over with water and press it. Then if he made an aspiration and acted thus, he would be unable to procure any oil. If he made no aspiration and acted thus, he would still be unable to procure any oil. If he both made an aspiration and made no aspiration and acted thus, he would still be unable to procure any oil. If he neither made an aspiration nor made no aspiration and acted thus, he would still be unable to procure any oil. Why is that? Because that way of acting is not a proper method for procuring oil. So too, whatever recluses and Brahmins have wrong view, they are still unable to procure any fruit. Why is that? Because that wrong path is not a proper method for procuring fruit. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha says that if recluses and Brahmins, they don't practice the correct holy path, the spiritual path, the holy life, then they are unable to procure any fruit out of their efforts. Just like a man, he wants to get oil, and he were to take gravel, stone or sand, and press it, crush it. It's not possible to get any oil from stone, gravel. It doesn't matter whether he makes an aspiration or no aspiration. Suppose a man needing milk, seeking milk, wandering in search of milk, were to pull a recently calved cow by her horn. Then if he made an aspiration, if he made no aspiration, if he both made an aspiration and made no aspiration, if he neither made an aspiration nor made no aspiration and acted thus, he would still be unable to procure any milk. Why is that? Because that way of acting is not a proper method for procuring milk. So too, whatever recluses and Brahmins have wrong view, they are still unable to procure any fruit. Why is that? Because that wrong path is not a proper method for procuring fruit. Suppose a man needing butter, seeking butter, wandering in search of butter, were to pour water into a churn and churn it with a churning stick. Then if he made an aspiration, if he made no aspiration, if he both made an aspiration and made no aspiration, if he neither made an aspiration nor made no aspiration and acted thus, he would still be unable to procure any butter. Why is that? Because that way of acting is not a proper method for procuring butter. So too, whatever recluses and Brahmins have wrong view, etc., they are still unable to procure any fruit. Why is that? Because that wrong path is not a proper method for procuring fruit. Suppose a man seeking fire, needing fire, wandering in search of fire, were to take an upper fire stick and rub a wet, sappy piece of wood with it. Then if he made an aspiration, if he made no aspiration, if he both made an aspiration and made no aspiration, if he neither made an aspiration nor made no aspiration and acted thus, he would still be unable to procure any fire. Why is that? Because that way of acting is not a proper method for procuring fire. So too, whatever recluses and Brahmins have wrong view, etc., they are still unable to procure any fruit. Why is that? Because that wrong path is not a proper method for procuring fruit. So here the Buddha gives three other examples. This man, he wants to get milk from the cow. Instead of pulling the udder, he pulls the horn. So there's no milk in the horn, so he's unable to get any milk. Similarly, this man wants butter. Instead of churning milk, he churns water. How to get milk from water? And then the third one, a man wants to make fire. In those days, he used to use an upper fire stick and rub it against a dry piece of wood, which would heat up and produce fire. But this man, he uses a wet, sappy piece of wood, so it's impossible to make a fire. So in all these cases, because of the wrong method, doesn't matter whether he makes an aspiration or no aspiration. Aspiration you can also consider as a vow. These Mahayanis like to make vows. So here the Buddha says the method is wrong, and aspiration or no aspiration is not going to get what he wants. Whatever recluses and Brahmins have right view, right thoughts, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right recollection and right concentration, if they make an aspiration and they lead the holy life, they are able to procure fruit. If they make no aspiration and they lead the holy life, they are still able to procure fruit. If they both make an aspiration and make no aspiration and they lead the holy life, they are still able to procure fruit. If they neither make an aspiration nor make no aspiration and they lead the holy life, they are still able to procure fruit. Why is that? Because that right path is a proper method for procuring fruit. I'll stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha says, this recluse or Brahmin, he practices the right Noble Eightfold Path. So he is sure to get fruit from his effort, and doesn't matter whether he makes an aspiration or no aspiration. So here you see what is important is not the aspiration but the right method. even without any aspiration, without any determination, without any vow, without any prayer, he can still get what he wants because of the right method. Suppose a man needing oil, seeking oil, wandering in search of oil, were to heap up sesame flour in a tub, sprinkle it all over with water and press it. Then if he made an aspiration and acted thus, he would be able to procure oil. If he made no aspiration and acted thus, he would still be able to procure oil. If he both made an aspiration and made no aspiration and acted thus, he would still be able to procure oil. If he neither made an aspiration nor made no aspiration and acted thus, he would still be able to procure oil. Why is that? Because that way of acting is a proper method for procuring oil. So too, whatever recluses and Brahmins have right view, etc., they are still able to procure fruit. Why is that? Because that right path is a proper method for procuring fruit. Suppose a man needing milk, seeking milk, wandering in search of milk, were to pull a recently calved cow by her udder. Then if he made an aspiration, if he made no aspiration, if he both made an aspiration and made no aspiration, if he neither made an aspiration nor made no aspiration and acted thus, he would still be able to procure milk. Why is that? Because that way of acting is a proper method for procuring milk. So too, whatever recluses and Brahmins have right view, etc., they are still able to procure fruit. Why is that? Because that right path is a proper method for procuring fruit. Suppose a man needing butter, seeking butter, wandering in search of butter, were to pour curd into a churn and churn it with a churning stick. Then if he made an aspiration, if he made no aspiration, if he both made an aspiration and made no aspiration, if he neither made an aspiration nor made no aspiration and acted thus, he would still be able to procure butter. Why is that? Because that way of acting is a proper method for procuring butter. So too, whatever recluses and Brahmins have right view, etc., they are still able to procure fruit. Why is that? Because that right path is a proper method for procuring fruit. Suppose a man needing fire, seeking fire, wandering in search of fire, were to take an upper fire stick and rub a dry, sapless piece of wood with it. Then if he made an aspiration, or if he made no aspiration, if he both made an aspiration and made no aspiration, if he neither made an aspiration nor made no aspiration and acted thus, he would still be able to procure fire. Why is that? Because that way of acting is a proper method for procuring fire. So too, whatever recluses and Brahmins have right view, etc., they are still able to procure fruit. Why is that? Because that right path is a proper method for procuring fruit. Bhumija, if these four similes had occurred to you with reference to Prince Jayasena, he would have spontaneously acquired confidence in you, and being confident would have shown his confidence to you. And he said, well, sir, how could these four similes have occurred to me with reference to Prince Jayasena as they occur to the Blessed One, since they are spontaneous and have never been heard before? That is what the Blessed One said. The Venerable Bhumija was satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. So this sutta is very clear that this aspiration or making a vow is of no use. What's important is to do the correct karma, do the right thing, work for it, and then only we can get what we want. Now we come to Sutta 127, Anuruddha Sutta. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. Then the carpenter Panchakanga addressed a certain man thus, Come, good man, go to the Venerable Anuruddha, pay homage in my name with your head at his feet, and say, Venerable Sir, the carpenter Panchakanga pays homage with his head at the Venerable Anuruddha's feet, and say, Venerable Sir, let the Venerable Anuruddha and 3 others consent to accept tomorrow's meal from the carpenter Panchakanga, and let the Venerable Anuruddha arrive punctually, as the carpenter Panchakanga is very busy and has much work to do for the king. Yes, sir, that man replied, and he went to the Venerable Anuruddha. After paying homage to the Venerable Anuruddha, he sat down at one side and delivered his message. The Venerable Anuruddha consented in silence. Then when the night had ended, it being morning, the Venerable Anuruddha dressed, and taking his bowl and outer robe, He went to the carpenter Panchakanga's house and sat down on a seat made ready. Then with his own hands, the carpenter Panchakanga served and satisfied the Venerable Anuruddha with the various kinds of good food. Then when the Venerable Anuruddha had eaten and had withdrawn his hand from his bowl, the carpenter Panchakanga took a low seat, sat down at one side, and said to the Venerable Anuruddha, stop here for a moment. So here you see this carpenter Panchakanga is not an ordinary carpenter. He's a carpenter to the king. So because he's an important man, has a lot of work to do. So you see he told this Venerable Anuruddha to arrive punctually. This is not normal to invite an Arahant and tell him, you come on time. The other thing is, you see, after the Venerable Anuruddha had eaten and withdrawn his hand from his bowl, in the early days, when the monks ate, they would put the bowl on their lap, the bowl on their lap, and they'd eat with their hands. Then later, there was a monk who was sick, very weak. So he could not hold the bowl properly or what. Then the Buddha allowed the monks to have a bowl stand. And also with the bowl stand, maybe it's a bit higher. So it looks like when the monks have finished their meal, they still keep the bowl on their lap, and they look when the other monks have finished eating, then they'll take the bowl and put aside, so it's no more with them. Then the host will know that they have finished their meal, and normally during the Buddha's time, after the monks finish their meal, as a sort of blessing, the monks will give a short teaching on the Dharma, not necessarily a long teaching, sometimes just a few sentences. So here this carpenter Panchakanga, he wanted to learn some Dhamma, so he came near, sat on a low seat. Then he said to the Venerable Anuruddha, "Here, Venerable Sir, elder monks have come to me and said, Householder, develop the immeasurable liberation of mind. And some elders have said, Householder, develop the exalted liberation of mind. Venerable Sir, the immeasurable liberation of mind and the exalted liberation of mind, are these states different in meaning and different in name? Or are they one in meaning and different only in name?" And Venerable Anuruddha said, "Explain it as you see it, householder. Afterwards it will be cleared up for you." Venerable Sir, I think thus, the immeasurable liberation of mind and the exalted liberation of mind, these states are one in meaning and different only in name. Stop here for a moment. This carpenter Panchakanga, we have seen in some other sutta, that he's one of the strong supporters of the Buddha, and being one of those had a lot of faith in the Buddha and his disciples. He already knows some Dhamma. So here Venerable Anuruddha asked him to explain, and he said, if it's not correct, he will clear it up, clear up the meaning. There are certain disciples of the Buddha, lay disciples, who are very knowledgeable in the Dhamma. One of them is Citta. Normally, Citta, when he invites monks to his house, after the meal, if they don't give a teaching on the Dhamma, he will ask them questions on the Dhamma. If they cannot answer, he will teach them the Dhamma. He's so good. He's an Anagamin disciple. And then the Venerable Anuruddha said, Householder, the immeasurable liberation of mind and the exalted liberation of mind, these states are different in meaning and different in name. And it should be understood as follows, how these states are different in meaning and different in name. But what, householder, is the immeasurable liberation of mind? Stop here for a moment. This immeasurable liberation of mind, the Pali word is appamana ceto vimutti. Appamana is immeasurable. Ceto vimutti is liberation of mind or liberation by mind sometimes. Here a monk abides pervading 1/4 with a mind imbued with loving kindness. Likewise the second, likewise the third quarter, likewise the fourth quarter. So above, below, around, and everywhere, and to all as to himself, he abides pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with loving kindness, metta, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. He abides pervading 1/4 with a mind imbued with compassion. Similarly, he abides pervading 1/4 with a mind imbued with joy. He abides pervading 1/4 with a mind imbued with equanimity, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. This is called the immeasurable liberation of mind. So here the Buddha, Venerable Anuruddha is describing the 4 Brahmaviharas, the 4 divine abidings, metta, which is loving kindness, karuna, which is compassion, mudita, which is joy, and upekkha, which is equanimity. So here the Venerable Anuruddha says, this monk, he radiates these 4 things to the 4 quarters, and without limit, so it's called immeasurable. And what householder is the exalted liberation of mind? This exalted liberation of mind is Mahagata Ceto Vimutti. Mahagata Ceto Vimutti. Here a monk abides resolved upon an area the size of the root of one tree, pervading it as exalted. This is called the exalted liberation of mind. Here a monk abides resolved upon an area the size of the roots of 2 or 3 trees, pervading it as exalted. This too is called the exalted liberation of mind. Here a monk abides resolved upon an area the size of one village, pervading it as exalted, or an area the size of 2 or 3 villages, or an area the size of one major kingdom, or an area the size of 2 or 3 major kingdoms, or an area the size of the earth bounded by the ocean, pervading it as exalted. This too is called the exalted liberation of mind. It is in this way, householder, that it can be understood how these states are different in meaning and different in name. Stop here for a moment. So the first one was pervading these Brahmaviharas without a limit. That's why it's called immeasurable. The other one, the exalted one, is to a certain limit. This one, Mahagata, exalted, comes from Maha and Gata. Gata is gone, like the Tathagata, thus gone one. So Mahagata is gone a great distance or a great way. That's why it's called exalted. So the second one, there's a limit to it. The first one, there's no limit. There are householder. These 4 kinds of, here it says reappearance. Upapatti should be rebirth also can. These 4 kinds of reappearance in a future state of being. But 4. Here someone abides resolved upon and pervading limited radiance on the dissolution of the body after death. He reappears in the company of the gods of limited radiance. Here someone abides resolved upon and pervading immeasurable radiance on the dissolution of the body after death. He reappears in the company of the gods of immeasurable radiance. Here someone abides resolved upon and pervading defiled radiance on the dissolution of the body after death. He reappears in the company of the gods of defiled radiance. Here someone abides resolved upon and pervading pure radiance on the dissolution of the body after death. He reappears in the company of the gods of pure radiance. These are the 4 kinds of reappearance in a future state of being. Stop here for a moment. This one is referring to the radiance is Abhasara, the second Jhana heaven. In the second Jhana heaven, the gods of radiance, there are 3 types, 3 levels. the gods of limited radiance, the gods of immeasurable radiance, the gods of streaming radiance. So here is only talking about the gods of limited radiance and immeasurable radiance. Then the other two that he talks about, this defiled radiance and pure radiance, are supposed to be subdivisions inside each one of these. Later you can see the meaning. There is an occasion, householder, when those deities assemble in one place. When they have assembled in one place, a difference in their color can be discerned, but no difference in their radiance. Just as if a man were to bring several oil lamps into a house, a difference in the flames of the lamps might be discerned, but no difference in their radiance. So too, there is an occasion when those deities assemble in one place. A difference in their color can be discerned, but no difference in their radiance. There is an occasion, householder, when those deities disperse from there. When they have dispersed, a difference in their colors can be discerned, and also a difference in their radiance. Just as if the man were to remove those several oil lamps from that house, a difference might be discerned in the flames of the lamps, and also a difference in their radiance. So too, there is an occasion when those deities disperse from there, and a difference in their colors can be discerned, and also a difference in their radiance. It does not occur to those deities. This life of ours is permanent, everlasting and eternal. Yet wherever those deities settle down, there they find delight. Just as when flies are being carried along a carrying pole or on a basket, it does not occur to them. This life of ours is permanent, everlasting or eternal. Yet wherever those flies settle down, there they find delight. So too, it does not occur to those deities. This life of ours is permanent, everlasting and eternal. Yet wherever those deities settle down, there they find delight. Stop it for a moment. This last part, like most beings in the world, we don't think about our life, how long it is, how short it is. We just enjoy it. If we can enjoy, we just enjoy. So same with these deities. When this was said, the Venerable Abhya Kachana said to the Venerable Anuruddha, "Good Venerable Anuruddha, yet I have something further to ask. Are all those radiant ones deities of limited radiance, or are some of them deities of immeasurable radiance? By reason of the factor responsible for rebirth, friend Kachana, some are deities of limited radiance, some deities of immeasurable radiance. Venerable Anuruddha, what is the cause and reason why among those deities that have reappeared in a single order of gods, some are deities of limited radiance, some deities of immeasurable radiance? As to that, friend Kachana, I shall ask you a question in return. Answer it as you choose. What do you think, friend Kachana? When one monk abides resolved upon an area the size of the root of one tree, pervading it as exalted, and another monk abides resolved upon the area the size of the roots of 2 or 3 trees, pervading it as exalted, which of these types of mental development is more exalted? The second, Venerable Sir. What do you think, friend Kachana? When one monk abides resolved upon an area the size of the roots of 2 or 3 trees, pervading it as exalted, and another monk abides resolved upon an area the size of one village, pervading it as exalted, or an area the size of one village and an area the size of 2 or 3 villages, or an area the size of 2 or 3 villages and an area the size of one major kingdom, or an area the size of one major kingdom and an area the size of 2 or 3 major kingdoms, or an area the size of 2 or 3 major kingdoms and an area the size of the earth bounded by the ocean, pervading it as exalted. Which of these 2 types of mental development is more exalted? The second, Venerable Sir. This is the cause and reason, friend Kachana, why among those deities that have reappeared in a single order of gods, some are deities of limited radiance, some deities of immeasurable radiance. Stop here for a moment. So here Venerable Anuruddha is saying, those monks, when they develop this radiance, some they radiate to a certain limit. That's why they are born in the heaven of gods of limited radiance. Whereas there are some, their concentration is stronger, so they can radiate immeasurably. So they are reborn as gods of immeasurable radiance. Good, Venerable Anuruddha. Yet I have something further to ask. Are all those radiant ones deities of defiled radiance, or are some of them deities of pure radiance? In other words, each one of these, for example, inside the limited radiance or inside the immeasurable radiance, you have both these classes, defiled radiance and pure radiance. And Venerable Anuruddha said, by reason of the factor responsible for rebirth, friend Kachana, some are deities of defiled radiance, some deities of pure radiance. Venerable Anuruddha, what is the cause and reason why among those deities that have reappeared in a single order of gods, some are deities of defiled radiance, some deities of pure radiance? As to that, friend Kachana, I shall give a simile, for some wise men here understand the meaning of a statement by means of a simile. Suppose an oil lamp is burning with impure oil and an impure wick. Because of the impurity of its oil and its wick, it burns dimly. So too, here among the bites resolved upon and pervading an area with the defiled radiance, his bodily inertia has not fully subsided. His sloth and torpor have not been fully eliminated. His restlessness and remorse have not been fully removed. Because of this, he meditates as it were dimly. On the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in the company of the gods of defiled radiance. Suppose an oil lamp is burning with pure oil and a pure wick. Because of the purity of its oil and its wick, it does not burn dimly. So too, here among abides resolved upon and pervading an area with a pure radiance, his bodily inertia has fully subsided. His sloth and torpor have been fully eliminated. His restlessness and remorse have been fully removed. Because of this, he meditates as it were brightly. On the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in the company of the gods of pure radiance. This is the cause and reason, friend Kachana, why among those deities that have reappeared in the same order of gods, some are deities of defiled radiance, some deities of pure radiance. Stop here for a moment. So here, Anuruddha explains that, for example, when someone is practicing this limited radiance, there are some, there are two types. One is practicing, but his hindrances are not totally removed. There are still some bodily inertia, refers to the sluggishness, the dullness, the inactivity of the mind, and the sloth and torpor, restlessness and remorse. So because of this, he meditates dimly. His mind is not so bright. Whereas the other one, he has removed all these hindrances, so his mind is strong and bright. So one is reborn among the gods of defiled radiance, the other one is reborn among the gods of pure radiance. When this was said, the Venerable Abhya Kachana said to the Venerable Anuruddha, good Venerable Anuruddha, the Venerable Anuruddha does not say, thus have I heard, or it should be thus. Rather, the Venerable Anuruddha says, these gods are thus, and these gods are such. It occurs to me, Venerable Sir, that the Venerable Anuruddha certainly has associated with those deities and talked with them and held conversations with them. Certainly, friend Kachana, your words are offensive and discourteous, but still I will answer you. Over a long time I have associated with those deities and talked with them and held conversations with them. When this was said, the Venerable Abhya Kachana said to the carpenter Panchakanga, it is a gain for you, householder. It is a great gain for you that you have abandoned your state of doubt and have had the opportunity to hear this discourse on the Dhamma. That's the end of the sutta. So here this last part now, why he says your words are offensive and discourteous? Because some of these, like a monk's attainments, a monk is only supposed to discuss them with other monks, not with lay people, because if he discloses his attainments to lay people, it's like showing off. It's not allowed in the Vinaya. So here this carpenter Panchakanga is in front of them. So this Venerable Abhya Kachana is telling Venerable Anuruddha, it seems like you have directly talked with these gods. So Venerable Kachana, Venerable Anuruddha has to acknowledge that he personally talks with these gods. So that's why he said his words are offensive and discourteous. So this sutta is about this immeasurable liberation of mind, exalted liberation of mind by Venerable Anuruddha, because Venerable Anuruddha is a Arahant with the greatest heavenly eye. His mind has opened up so much that he can see 1,000 worlds like in the palm of his hand. His mind has opened up so wide that 1,000 world systems are just like in the palm of his hand. Okay, I think we have time to do another sutta. 128, Upakkilesa Sutta, imperfections. Kilesa, this word kilesa can be translated as defilements also. Thus have I heard, on one occasion the Blessed One was living at Kosambi in Gosita's park. Now on that occasion the monks at Kosambi had taken to quarrelling and brawling, and were deep in disputes, stabbing each other with verbal daggers. Then a certain monk went to the Blessed One, and after paying homage to him, he stood at one side and said, Venerable Sir, the monks here at Kosambi have taken to quarrelling and brawling, and are deep in disputes, stabbing each other with verbal daggers. It would be good, Venerable Sir, if the Blessed One would go to those monks out of compassion. The Blessed One consented in silence. Then the Blessed One went to those monks and said to them, Enough, monks, let there be no quarrelling, brawling, wrangling, or dispute. When this was said, a certain monk said to the Blessed One, Wait, Venerable Sir, let the Blessed One, the Lord of the Dhamma, live at ease, devoted to a pleasant abiding here and now. We are the ones who will be responsible for this quarrelling, brawling, wrangling, and dispute. For a second time and for a third time, the Blessed One said, Enough, monks, let there be no quarrelling, brawling, wrangling, or dispute. And for a third time, the monk said to the Blessed One, Wait, Venerable Sir, let the Blessed One, the Lord of the Dhamma, live at ease, devoted to a pleasant abiding here and now. We are the ones who will be responsible for this quarrelling, brawling, wrangling, and dispute. I'll stop here for a moment. This Kosambi monks, in the Vinaya books, is mentioned, they had a big quarrel, big dispute, which lasted a long time. So this probably refers to that one. Then when it was morning, the Blessed One dressed, and taking his bowl and outer robe, entered Kosambi for alms. When he had wandered for alms in Kosambi and had returned from his alms round, after his meal he set his resting place in order, took his bowl and outer robe, and while still standing uttered these stanzas. When many voices shout at once, none considers himself a fool. Though the Sangha is being split, none thinks himself to be at fault. They have forgotten thoughtful speech. They talk obsessed by words alone, uncurb their mouths. They bawl at will. None knows what leads him so to act. He abused me, he struck me, he defeated me, he robbed me. In those who harbor thoughts like these, hatred will never be allayed. For in this world, hatred is never allayed by further acts of hate. It is allayed by non-hatred. That is the fixed and ageless law. Those others do not recognize that here we should restrain ourselves. But those wise ones who realize this at once end all their enmity. Stop here for a moment. So, the Buddha, after trying to tell the monks not to quarrel many times, they refused to listen to him. He had enough of them. He decided to leave. So these few words the Buddha uttered is found in the Dhammapada. These words are very important because all through the history of mankind, even up to today, there's a lot of wars, a lot of fighting, a lot of hatred. And because people don't know the Dhamma, they practice like this teaching, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. So these wars and hatred and fighting never ends. So the Buddha says, you cannot put out fire with fire. If there's a fire, you must use water. It's the opposite. Then only you can fight fire with water. So in the same way, when there's a lot of hatred, only metta, loving kindness, compassion can help. Breakers of bones and murderers, those who steal cattle, horses, wealth, those who pillage the entire realm. When even these can act together, why can you not do so too? If one can find a worthy friend, a virtuous, steadfast companion, then overcome all threats of danger and walk with him content and mindful. But if one finds no worthy friend, no virtuous, steadfast companion, then as a king leaves his conquered realm, walk like a tusker in the woods alone. Better it is to walk alone. There is no companionship with fools. Walk alone and do no evil, at ease like a tusker in the woods. This last part is interesting because in this world, most people are fools. Most people who live a normal life, they don't practice the Dhamma, they are not interested in the holy life, in the holy spiritual path. So they enjoy life, and at the end of life, they find they have to take rebirth in the woeful plains of rebirth. So the Buddha says, if that is so, if you can't find a good spiritual friend, then walk alone. Don't mix with fools, because if you mix with fools, you have to join them and do what they do. Then having uttered these stanzas while standing, the Blessed One went to the village of Bala Kalona Kara. On that occasion, the Venerable Bhagu was living in the village of Bala Kalona Kara. Then the Venerable Bhagu saw the Blessed One coming in the distance. He prepared a seat and set out water for washing the feet. The Blessed One sat down on the seat made ready and washed his feet. The Venerable Bhagu paid homage to the Blessed One and sat down at one side. And the Blessed One said to him, I hope you are keeping well, monk. I hope you are comfortable. I hope you are not having any trouble getting alms food. Stop here for a moment. So this Venerable Bhagu appears to be one of those solitary monks who love to live alone, away from the quarreling monks. So the Buddha came to this place and met him. I am keeping well, Blessed One. I am comfortable and I am not having any trouble getting alms food. Then the Blessed One instructed, urged, roused and encouraged the Venerable Bhagu to talk on the Dhamma, after which he rose from his seat and went to the eastern bamboo park. Now, on that occasion, the Venerable Anuruddha, the Venerable Nandya and the Venerable Kimbila were living at the eastern bamboo park. The park keeper saw the Blessed One coming in the distance and told him, do not enter this park, recluse. There are 3 clansmen here seeking their own good. Do not disturb them. The Venerable Anuruddha heard the park keeper speaking to the Blessed One and told him, Friend park keeper, do not keep the Blessed One out. It is our teacher, the Blessed One, who has come. Then the Venerable Anuruddha went to the Venerable Nandya and the Venerable Kimbila and said, Come out, Venerable Sirs, come out. Our teacher, the Blessed One, has come. I stop here for a moment. This part is a bit similar to the Majjhima Nikāya Sutta 31, where these 3 monks were living together and the Buddha went to them. But in that Sutta, Majjhima Nikāya 31, they had already attained arahanthood. Whereas here, they had not yet attained arahanthood, as you can see later. But this Venerable Anuruddha is one monk, even before he attained arahanthood, his psychic power already developed. So So probably because of that, when the Buddha was told by the park keeper not to enter, with his divine ear, he heard, probably. So he told the park keeper to allow the Buddha to come in. Then all three went to meet the Blessed One. One took his bowl and outer robe. One prepared a seat. One set out water for washing the feet. The Blessed One sat down on the seat made ready and washed his feet. Then those three Venerable Ones paid homage to the Blessed One and sat down at one side. And the Blessed One said to them, I hope you are all keeping well, Anuruddha. I hope you are comfortable. I hope you are not having any trouble getting alms food. We are keeping well, Blessed One. We are comfortable and we are not having any trouble getting alms food. I hope, Anuruddha, that you are all living in concord with mutual appreciation, without disputing, blending like milk and water, viewing each other with kindly eyes. Surely, Venerable Sir, we are living in concord with mutual appreciation, without disputing, blending like milk and water, viewing each other with kindly eyes. Stop here for a moment. This, in the Vinaya books, the Buddha encouraged monks to live together, maximum 3 monks together. It's only in the big monasteries, many monks live together because a lot of them were new monks that needed to be trained. But those that had completed 5 years of training under a teacher, the Buddha encouraged them to go off and live alone, or 2 or 3 together, not more than 3. Because for various reasons, when you have too many monks staying together, sometimes they talk, they hinder each other from their practice, and sometimes they can't get along. And also, when too many monks go on Pindapata, alms round, it's a burden to lay people. So like in outside Vasa here, generally only 2 monks will go Pindapata, alms round. Only during the Vasa, because we have many people, then 3 monks go, just to let the lay people know we have more people here. And then he asks, but Anuruddha, how do you live thus? Venerable Sir, as to that, I think thus, it is a gain for me, it is a great gain for me that I am living with such companions in the holy life. I maintain bodily acts of loving kindness towards these Venerable Ones, both openly and privately. I maintain verbal acts of loving kindness towards them, both openly and privately. I maintain mental acts of loving kindness towards them, both openly and privately. I consider, why should I not set aside what I wish to do, and do what these Venerable Ones wish to do? Then I set aside what I wish to do, and do what these Venerable Ones wish to do. We are different in body, Venerable Sir, but one in mind. The Venerable Nandya and the Venerable Kimbila each spoke likewise, adding, that is how, Venerable Sir, we are living in concord, with mutual appreciation, without disputing, blending like milk and water, viewing each other with kindly eyes. Stop here for a moment. So this is how people, when they live together, especially in a monastery, we should act, we should have metta towards each other, openly and in privately, and also not think that people should do according to what you think should be the way it should be done, but set aside your own opinion and do what the majority wish to do. Sometimes a lot of dispute and friction arises because people are strong-minded, want everybody to follow what they think should be the way things should be done. So here, these 3 monks, because they appreciate each other's company, they set aside what they wish to do and follow what others want to do. Good, Anuruddha. I hope you all abide diligent, ardent and resolute. Surely, Venerable Sir, we abide diligent, ardent and resolute. But Anuruddha, how do you abide thus? Venerable Sir, as to that, whichever of us returns first from the village with alms food, prepares the seats, sets out the water for drinking and for washing, and puts the refuse bucket in its place. Whichever of us returns last, eats any food left over, if he wishes. Otherwise, he throws it away where there is no greenery, or drops it into water where there is no life. He puts away the seeds and the water for drinking and for washing. He puts away the refuse bucket after washing it, and he sweeps out the refectory or dining place. Whoever notices that the pots of water for drinking, washing, or the latrine are low or empty takes care of them. If they are too heavy for him, he calls someone else by a signal of the hand, and they move it by joining hands. But because of this, we do not break out into speech. But every 5 days we sit together all night discussing the Dhamma. That is how we abide, diligent, ardent, and resolute. Stop here for a moment. So here you see how they are very cooperative. Each knows what to do. When anything needs to be done, they just do it. And they don't talk to each other. But when they talk, they only discuss the Dhamma. This is once in 5 days. Good, Anuruddha. But while you abide thus diligent, ardent and resolute, have you attained any superhuman states, a distinction in knowledge and vision worthy of the Aryans, a noble, comfortable abiding? Remember, sir, as we abide here diligent, ardent and resolute, we perceive both light and a vision of forms. Soon afterwards, the light and the vision of forms disappear, but we have not discovered the cause for that. You should discover the cause for that, Anuruddha. Before my enlightenment, while I was still only an unenlightened bodhisattva, I too perceived both light and a vision of forms. Soon afterwards, the light and the vision of forms disappeared. I thought, what is the cause and condition why the light and the vision of forms have disappeared? Then I considered thus, doubt arose in me, and because of the doubt, my concentration fell away. When my concentration fell away, the light and the vision of forms disappeared. I shall so act that doubt does not arise in me again. As Anuruddha, I was abiding diligent, ardent and resolute. I perceived both light and a vision of forms. Soon afterwards, the light and the vision of forms disappeared. I thought, what is the cause and condition why the light and the vision of forms have disappeared? Then I considered thus, inattention arose in me, and because of inattention, my concentration fell away. When my concentration fell away, the light and the vision of forms disappeared. I shall so act that neither doubt nor inattention will arise in me again. As Anuruddha, I was abiding, diligent, ardent and resolute, etc. I considered thus, sloth and torpor arose in me, and because of sloth and torpor, my concentration fell away. When my concentration fell away, the light and the vision of forms disappeared. I shall so act that neither doubt nor inattention nor sloth and torpor will arise in me again. As Anuruddha, I was abiding, diligent, ardent and resolute, etc. I considered thus, fear arose in me, and because of fear, my concentration fell away. When my concentration fell away, the light and the vision of forms disappeared. Suppose a man set out on a journey, and murderers leaped out on both sides of him. Then fear would arise in him because of that. So too, fear arose in me, and so the light and the vision of forms disappeared. I considered thus, I shall so act that neither doubt nor inattention nor sloth and torpor nor fear will arise in me again. As Anuruddha, I was abiding, diligent, ardent and resolute, etc. I considered thus, elation arose in me, and because of elation, my concentration fell away. When my concentration fell away, the light and the vision of forms disappeared. Suppose a man seeking one entrance to a hidden treasure came all at once upon 5 entrances to a hidden treasure. Then elation would arise in him because of that. So too, an elation arose in me, etc. And so the light and the vision of forms disappeared. I considered thus, I shall so act that neither doubt nor inattention, etc., nor fear nor elation would arise in me again. I'll stop here for a moment. So here, the Buddha said, before he was enlightened, as he meditated and the concentration arose, when the concentration rises up, comes up, then this light appears and vision of forms. But because the concentration is not strong enough, it's still the concentration still wobbles. So when these hindrances come up, then this light and the vision of forms disappeared. So these various hindrances are doubt, inattention, sloth and torpor, fear, elation. Just like some people, when they meditate, light appears, they're very happy, and because of that they are distracted, and so the concentration goes down, so the light disappears. As Anuruddha, I was abiding, diligent, ardent, resolute, etc. I considered thus, inertia arose in me, and because of inertia, my concentration fell away. When my concentration fell away, the light and the vision of forms disappeared. I shall so act that neither doubt nor inattention, etc. will arise in me again. As Anuruddha, I was abiding, diligent, ardent, resolute, etc. I considered thus, excess of energy arose in me, and because of excess of energy, my concentration fell away. When my concentration fell away, the light and the vision of forms disappeared. Suppose a man were to grip a quail tightly with both hands. He would die then and there. So too an excess of energy arose in me, and the light and the vision of forms disappeared. I considered that I shall so act that neither doubt nor inattention, etc., nor inertia nor excess of energy will arise in me again. As Anuruddha, I was abiding, diligent, ardent, resolute, etc. Then I considered thus, deficiency of energy arose in me, and because of deficiency of energy, my concentration fell away. When my concentration fell away, the light and vision of forms disappeared. Suppose a man were to grip a quail loosely, it would fly out of his hand. So too a deficiency of energy arose in me, and so the light and vision of forms disappeared. I considered thus, I shall so act that neither doubt nor inattention, etc., nor excess of energy nor deficiency of energy will arise in me again. As Anuruddha, I was abiding, diligent, ardent, resolute, etc. And then I considered thus, longing arose in me, and because of that longing, my concentration fell away. When my concentration fell away, the light and the vision of forms disappeared. I shall so act that neither doubt nor inattention, etc., nor deficiency of energy nor longing will arise in me again. Stop here for a moment. This longing is the longing to see the light and to see the forms, etc. Just like some people, they meditate, they want results. So because of their longing for results, they cannot progress. As Anuruddha, I was abiding, diligent, ardent, resolute, etc. Then I considered thus, perception of diversity arose in me, and because of perception of diversity, my concentration fell away. When my concentration fell away, the light and vision of forms disappeared. I shall so act that neither doubt nor inattention, etc., nor longing nor perception of diversity will arise in me again. As Anuruddha, I was abiding, diligent, ardent, resolute, etc. Then I considered thus, excessive meditation upon forms arose in me, and because of excessive meditation upon forms, my concentration fell away. When my concentration fell away, the light and the vision of forms disappeared. I shall so act that neither doubt nor inattention, etc., nor perception of diversity, nor excessive meditation upon forms will arise in me again. Stop here for a moment. This perception of diversity, I guess, refers to the diversity of the forms, different type of forms, and the diversity of light, different type of lights. Because of the seeing different things, perceiving different things, so his mind got a bit scattered. When Anuruddha, I understood that doubt is an imperfection of the mind, I abandoned doubt, an imperfection of the mind. When I understood that inattention, sloth and torpor, fear, elation, inertia, excess of energy, deficiency of energy, longing, perception of diversity, excessive meditation upon forms is an imperfection of the mind, I abandoned them, imperfections of the mind. As Anuruddha, I was abiding, diligent, ardent and resolute. I perceived light, but I did not see forms. I saw forms, but I did not perceive light, even for a whole night, or a whole day, or a whole day and night. I thought, what is the cause and condition for this? Then I considered thus, on the occasion when I do not attend to the sign of forms, but attend to the sign of light, I then perceive light, but do not see forms. On the occasion when I do not attend to the sign of light, but attend to the sign of forms, I then see forms, but do not perceive light, even for a whole night, or a whole day, or a whole day and night. As Anuruddha, I was abiding, diligent, ardent and resolute. I perceived limited light, and saw limited forms. I perceived immeasurable light, and saw immeasurable forms, even for a whole night, or a whole day, or a whole day and night? I thought, what is the cause and condition for this? Then I considered thus, on the occasion when concentration is limited, my vision is limited, and with limited vision, I perceive limited light and limited forms. On the occasion when concentration is immeasurable, my vision is immeasurable, and with immeasurable vision, I perceive immeasurable light and see immeasurable forms, even for a whole night, or a whole day, or a whole day and night. I'll stop here for a moment. So here you see concentration is important. When the concentration is limited, then his vision is limited. But when the concentration is immeasurable, then his vision is immeasurable. When Anuruddha, I understood that doubt is an imperfection of the mind and had abandoned doubt, an imperfection of the mind. When I understood that inattention is an imperfection of the mind and had abandoned inattention, abandoned sloth and torpor, fear, elation, inertia, excess of energy, deficiency of energy, longing, perception of diversity, abandoned excessive meditation upon forms. Then I thought, I have abandoned those imperfections of the mind. Let me now develop concentration in 3 ways. Thereupon, Anuruddha, I developed concentration with applied thought and sustained thought. I developed concentration without applied thought, but with sustained thought only. I developed concentration without applied thought and without sustained thought. I developed concentration with delight. I developed concentration without delight. I developed concentration accompanied by enjoyment. I developed concentration accompanied by equanimity. When Anuruddha, I had developed concentration with applied thought and sustained thought, etc. When I had developed concentration accompanied by equanimity, the knowledge and vision arose in me. My liberation is unshakable. This is my last birth. Now there is no renewal of being. That is what the Blessed One said. Remember, Anuruddha was satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. So this last part, concentration with applied thought and sustained thought, this refers to vitaka and vichara. Sometimes translated as thought directed and thought sustained. That is only found in the first jhana. And this with sustained thought, this also refers to the first jhana. Then without applied thought and without sustained thought, this is the second jhana. With delight, this is the second jhana. And then without delight is the third jhana already, accompanied by enjoyment, still the third jhana. And then accompanied by equanimity, it can be considered as the third jhana or the fourth jhana. In the fourth jhana is utter purity of equanimity. So here refers to developing the 4 jhanas. So when the Buddha said he had developed the 4 jhanas, then only he attained liberation. So that's the end of the sutta. So this is another sutta talking about the different concentrations. So you can see from this sutta that concentration is the criterion for being able to see light and to see forms. And when the concentration is immeasurable, then the vision is immeasurable. When the concentration is limited, then the vision is limited. Okay, we stop for the suttas here. Anything to discuss?
They do not restore the truth, but when people are experiencing, normally they will live the whole life working. The two will go together.
So what you're saying is when somebody has an aspiration, he will do the right thing. Not necessary. If a person doesn't know the Dhamma, then it's not likely that he will always do the right thing. For example, just to give you a simple example, if a man is rich and he goes hunting, likes to go hunting, shoot wild boars and all that. So because of shooting wild boars and killing, his life is going to be short. But if he doesn't understand the Dhamma, he thinks he does a lot of charity because he's a rich man. He does a lot of charity. He's sure to get long life. Because doing charity means next time when he comes back, he can become wealthy. He can be provided with what he needs, food, all the requisites of life. But because of his killing karma, he must have short life. That's why nowadays we can see some children are born in a rich family, but 1 year old or 2 years old or 3 years old, they have cancer, leukemia, and they have to pass away. So if you don't understand the Dhamma, you don't know the Buddha's explanation of karma vipaka, you do the wrong thing. Very often people have the right intention, but the wrong action. For example, there are some people, they want to be blessed. They want to have a lot of blessings and a lot of good luck. So they pray to God in heaven, and they kill the lamb, or they sacrifice the pig, or they kill the chicken and offer to heaven. By doing all these things, you're creating bad karma, evil karma. So instead of getting blessings, which he wants, he's getting the opposite of blessings, getting curses.
People don't get embodied result. Maybe somebody is still an example of referring to myself, somebody tries to harm another person, or tries to kill him. Then the difference comes. So even if he doesn't hit that person, let the right for him not to have any relationship with that person.
Yeah, it's okay not to have relationship with somebody who harms you. It's all right. So we avoid if you are not able to radiate loving kindness to him, the sight of him itself will make you boil. So you go away from him. Just like somebody says some nasty words to you, and you can't stand it. So you better walk away. If you don't walk away, you boil, you burst.
Is it necessary to attain to Jhana before we practice the four
Is it necessary to attain the jhanas before you practice the Brahmavihara? Well, you can practice the Brahmavihara, or try to practice before you attain the jhanas. But it is easier to practice it with the jhanas. In the suttas, the Buddha recommends that disciple attain the jhanas first, then only he can radiate this Brahmavihara. Without the jhanas, we cannot really radiate the Brahmavihara, but we can practice it through our body, speech, and our mind. So, like through our body language, through our verbal language, we practice loving kindness towards others, through speech and through body action. Oh yes, if a person can radiate metta, it's a sort of psychic power, If you really can radiate metta, then even the birds will come and sit on your shoulder, the animals, even wild animals, will come to you and all these things. Not something very ordinary. Very few people can actually radiate.
The last part of the Buddha says that have abandoned my terrible therapy and my naturality. I have abandoned those perceptions of mind that we now develop concentration in 3 ways. But it is that we do not abandon the previous plus the other symptoms. Then we develop the Jhana.
So you want to know why?
Yeah, I mean, well, we say that we develop the Jhana in a way that after the experience that we can experience, like how the other, because of the other paragraph that describes how the sometimes destructive to the aesthetic energy from the forward energy and to use different ways to overcome the problem. And every time we overcome all these ways, then we get expecting how we develop the system or
These hindrances here are more than the normal, than the 5 hindrances, the standard 5 hindrances lah. But these are also common hindrances faced by people who meditate lah. So after the Buddha noticed, the Buddha says after he noticed what is the obstacle, then he abandons that obstacle and then after that, before he can attain the jhanas, develop the concentration, he must abandon the 5 hindrances, the standard 5 hindrances, sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, and doubt. So this, we know from the suttas, is when he attains the threshold concentration. So he must go through the threshold concentration, abandon the 5 hindrances, then only get into the jhanas. This perception and light and perception of forms is not the nimittas referred to in the Visuddhimagga. This is actually the light emanating out from him, so that he can see. It's like the opening of the third eye, the heavenly eye. So this the Buddha encourages. Psychic powers are things that the Buddha encouraged. Yes. It's not the nimittas referred to in the Visuddhimagga. That one is about like if you mindful of the breath, then they say the breath becomes bright. But this is not. This is the I believe is the light welling up, so that the third eye opens up, the heavenly eye. Oh no. Okay, you can stop here.